Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel for another video on Gran Turismo 7. We're back with the weekend's highlights from the GT World Series from the Nations and Manufacturers race. This is the Nations combination. It was at Spa in Super Formula. Now this was our qualifying lap. We were at the end of the qualifying session, not really hooked an amazing lap up at this stage, but we're currently in P3 with the lap we just done there. Now this lap was actually looking pretty good. You're going to see, we're going to run through this lap, really solid lap in this combination. Now qualifying, as you will know, for this combination will have been, it was probably the most important part of the race, because the dirty air on this combination with these cars was pretty unbearable. So getting yourself in clean air was vital. So the further up the field you was, the better chance you had of a good race. Now through here you can see I actually really hooked this section up, got it really rotated through there. A little bit late on the apex air, which lost me a fraction of time, but overall pretty solid through there. Onto this right hand corner, and again, yeah, holding a nice tight line onto power. Now luckily for us, we caught up to this car and he got out of the way, so thank you to the driver there moving over and letting us through on this lap, because that was really important. Now completely flat through this long left hand corner. That was a scary corner, pretty much the corner of death as we named it throughout the weekend and throughout the practice sessions, because it was so easy to crash there. But hooked it up again through here, getting that rotation, a little bit slow on the power there, but overall still carrying quite good speed. So on a pretty good lap, you can see going through there on a 19.3. Now actually that sector split should have been good enough for a 48, because in time trial that was good enough to get a 48 if you hooked up the final chicane. However, you're going to see here, as we're coming into the braking zone, we're going to brake a little bit too late. I really tried to send it and try and carry as much speed. I braked a fraction too late. Really, you want to get it a little bit early on the brakes and go over the curb and get it rotated so you can get on the power a little bit early. You can see I was so late on the brakes, hesitant on the power then, and we lost at least, I think, minimum 10th, maybe 2 tenths, maybe even more, I don't know. But luckily, it managed to put us in provisional P1. However, we didn't keep that provisional P1 because we got overtaken right at the end, just before the checkered flag went out there. You can see I had to bail that lap that I was next on because I messed it up. So we waited in the garage, and you can see there L4 managed to put himself into P1 for this race. So starting P2 though, all was not lost, because P2 was actually pretty good position to be in from our practice sessions. So yeah, let's see what we can do. Traction control on, half throttle there. Then we're going to use the boost button, which gives more fuel into the engine. And we're going to go to the left-hand side of the track, just in case someone sends it. There was a car that sent it there. Luckily, I left that gap there, and that gives me a nice solid exit from the corner. Now we're at the perfect distance almost here to pick up not only the slipstream, but to use that boost. You can see we're using the overtake button. That's given us extra power all the way up this hill, and now we're going to have a massive slipstream. Going to go to the left-hand side of the track and try and take P1 before turn the chicane up here. So managing to get ahead, we're just about a car's lengths ahead, and we're going to take that inside line and put ourselves into the lead of this GT World Series Nations race. So yeah, this was split free, it was slot 1, it was our first attempt at the race, and now we're in the perfect position to take command of this race really. Being in P1, no dirty air, you can dictate the pace, you don't have to overdrive it, as long as you're pretty solid in most areas. The one corner I wanted to take it easy was this very difficult left-hand corner, so I was giving it quite big safety lifts there to make sure that we weren't going to risk it. For the first few laps you could technically go flat through there, but I wasn't going to risk it. I was going to play this ultra safe and just try and get this to the finish without making a big mistake. And you can see why really, because if you look in the mirror you can see also on the Delta the effects of that slipstream is horrible in Super Formula cars. It's one thing I really think that PD need to have a look at. Like, I get that you get turbulent air, but to the effect that you get it on this game, it's too strong. You should not be getting the loss of air that you get, especially even in Group 4 and Group 3 cars it happens, and it's way too strong. So I really think PD need to take a little look at it, reduce it by at least 50. It needs to be halved, minimum, I'd say a minimum of half of that slipstream dirty air gone. Doesn't mean you have to kill the slipstream power, but maybe just reduce that dirty air so we can follow a little bit better, because at the moment it's very difficult. And I kind of feel sorry for L4 really, because he qualified pole, we took advantage of the strategy of using that boost and managed to overtake him, and now he's just stuck in our dirty air because it's impossible to really do much about it. But he was saving his boost, I think, at this stage, and possibly saving tyres as well. But as we look behind us here, we see that he makes a big error, and quite an important error for the race there, that drops him down to over 3 seconds behind us. So that was brilliant for me in a way, because you know, he's lost quite a big chunk of time. They're over a second gone, and he's 2.5 seconds behind us. And then on the exit here, we can just pull away. And yeah, we managed to hold that lead up to lap 7, you see, around 1.7 seconds. And it gave us that cushion that we needed, that I needed just to lift on that corner, because I had the gap. So if I take it easy there, he catches back up, he gets to 30 air, and we can just do that every lap. So that was the plan. Just keep this strategy going of being ultra cautious on that corner that was wiping everyone out, and just trying to make sure these tyres were going to last to at least lap 9. Now, some people were able to make these tyres go further. I think we definitely could make them go further than what I did in this race, but it was a super risk. Every lap that you go over lap 8 or 9, I'd say, on this race with these tyres like this was a big risk, because them rear tyres could just snap at any instant and they'd just catch you out without you even knowing about it. So at this stage, you can see, coming to the end of lap 7, we're going to go over the line. We're on a pretty solid lap here. Lap 6 wasn't the best. You can see a 52.0, but we're back into the 51s, and actually we were able to do 51s pretty much all the way through the stint with these tyres if you just kept it nice and smooth. They could actually do probably low 51s if you actually pushed a little bit harder, but I was taking this so easy. You can see that gap. He's in the slipstream now. Now, I could have used boost at this stage, but I decided there's no real need to, because in a way I kind of wanted him to get more turbulent air. So I just left. I didn't use the boost that I had there. Let him pick up that slipstream and let him gain a bit of time, because all that's going to happen is he's going to lose more time when we get through to these corners. So letting him have that slipstream, and then as soon as we get into this section, you're going to see him drop straight away back down to 1.3 seconds. And that shows you just how bad that turbulent air is. It's actually horrible. Now, some people might think that's realistic, but it's not. You know, I know F1 cars in the past had quite turbulent air, but these are not F1 cars. These are Super Formula, totally different category, not the same car. And as far from what I've seen, they do get affected by it, but not to the extent that Gran Turismo does. Even Group 2 cars, for example, Super GT cars, are massively affected by turbulent air on Gran Turismo 7, and in real life I've seen them following bumper to bumper without much issue. So yeah, I really think it's time now to, you know, the PD are clearly listening about some things. MR cars are now drivable on Gran Turismo 7 and they're good fun. It's time PD started to listen with regards to that dirty air, and maybe make these races a little bit more fun and enjoyable to be in if you're not qualifying on pole or P2 or something like that. You know, make it so that overtaking is actually possible, because at the moment Alba can't really do much. He's pretty much stuck behind us in that dirty air. But you can see, coming to lap 8, the end of lap 8 here, we're on another reasonably okay lap into the braking zone. We were actually quite quick through the second sector split there, and then over the line here, we're going to go over the line again on a 51. It's going to be a 51.6. So yeah, still got plenty of potential on these tyres, so we're not going to pit at this stage. We didn't pit on lap 9 either. We went to lap 10. Now, this was a stage, you can see that rear left, where it starts to become, you know, hit or miss. Do you risk it at this stage? Now, I think I could have done at least one more lap out of these tyres. Definitely got to lap 11. However, doing that would be a big risk. So I decided to play it safe. Alba goes for the risky strategy. He's going to carry on them softer tyres, and we're going to pit and put the medium tyre on now. So into the pits, medium tyres on, and out of the pits, and luckily we're out into total clean air, no one to bother us, and that's because we've obviously gone to lap 10. The earlier you pitted, the more chance of dirty air you're going to get on the exit there. So luckily for us, we've got a clean bit of track, and we can just get back on with driving these medium tyres as safely as we can, taking no risks. You know, there was no point overdriving it and crashing, because one crash on this and your race was over, especially with the damage mod on this game now. So take it nice and easy through here again, being cautious on the power with these medium tyres on the outlap. I found that they had no grip at all on the outlap. You had to get some temperature in these tyres. So again, on the exit here, just being a little bit cautious. You can see the understeer really kicking in, and there was just no pace at all. However, as we come through here, look at the delta. It's pretty clear that Alba has had a big issue on that section of track there that we've just gone through, and he's lost a massive chunk of time. So I knew that I had to keep him within, I think I had to be within 20 seconds to get ahead of him out of the pits, but unfortunately for him now, he's dropped down to 16 seconds ahead. So at this stage, this is just looking perfect for me, because I really don't need to overdrive it. So once I saw that, I realised, you know, we've got a 9-second gap to P3. He's on the softer tyre, but if we take this pretty sensibly without overdriving it, this could be a pretty solid result for me. So yeah, again, you can see that gap still coming down, like 16 seconds. So he's obviously had damage. He's obviously clipped the wall there and picked up some damage. And P3, you can see as we skip to the end of lap 12, is slightly gaining, but it's not a dangerous amount that he's gaining. So Alba4 pits at the end of lap 12, and he's going to be behind us here. You can tell by the gap. We should have a few seconds over him by the time he comes out the pit lane. So onto the straight on these medium tyres. Now the medium tyres, obviously, like I say, we're doing 52.8. Now there was definitely potential for these medium tyres to still get into the 51s if you really push them, but like I said before, there was no real need to push them. I was taking this race quite calmly, not overdriving it. We've got a gap of 3 seconds now to Alba4, and that gives me quite a big cushion. He's going to have fresher tyres by a few laps, which is going to help him, obviously, on the last few laps. And also, I presumed he had a little bit more boost saved. I did manage to save myself literally a tiniest little bit of boost if we have to go defensive. So we've got that there if we need to use it, which we're going to save. But you can see through here, again, not overdriving it, taking it really calm and just trying to keep it on the track at this stage. We've done the hard work early on in the race, and now it's just a case of trying to keep it nice and smooth. And we managed to do that all the way up to lap 15. You can see, kept him out the slipstream, used my last bit of boost, and yeah, played it safe and managed to take the win. Now that mistake there by Alba4, the 2 mistakes probably cost him the win in this race. We could have definitely drove it a little bit faster. I could have pushed a little bit more, but there was a it was high risk of crashing if you overdrove it, so I just played it safe. And luckily for me, I feel we probably got a bit lucky by qualifying P2, because it gave me that ability to get ourselves into P1 at the start. But we drove it well, smart, and picked up a win in this Nations GT World Series race. And it was actually quite a nice win, that I have to say. After the practice sessions that were really catching us out on that corner, we finally figured it out to play it safe, and we take a nice victory there. And over 300 points, you can see 363 points there was some very, very nice points for my Nations title. So yeah, we're not trying to compete in terms of qualifying for Nations or manufacturer, but it's always nice to get a good amount of points going. So yeah, 363 points, very happy with that. So we're going to move on to the manufacturers now, and this was a qualifying session for manufacturers. So you can see, going over the line, we managed to get, luckily, eventually got an okay lap in there, which put us up to P1. However, that P1 did not last too long. You're going to see straight away we get overtaken now down to P2, and the times are going to keep dropping. It's a very, very close and competitive qualifying this. Now the Mercedes in this race was actually better than we predicted. We said in our video, I think for the track guide, that we were a bit worried about it. However, in the end, it actually was just a case of getting back used to this car. A little bit more oversteer, had to be a bit more smooth on throttle, but still drove quite nice. Now the only downside with this car was the tyre wear. The tyre wear was pretty aggressive on this car, but you can see on this lap, we're actually on a really, really strong lap at the moment. My time trial lap that we did for the track guide was a 16.8. Now, I knew that that was not the best lap, but that was also done on the previous physics. And this lap that we're on right now, we're actually going through this sector. You can see there on a pretty strong lap. You can see there, 51.2. Now, I knew this was going to be a good lap, so on this corner here, we pushed quite hard through. I managed to get on the throttle nicely and carry quite good exit speed, but I had to give it a tiny lift on the exit there, which probably cost me half a tenth. And then on this corner here, again, maybe a little bit hesitant on the throttle, maybe lost another half a tenth. So maybe a tenth of a second loss on the last sector, but I was willing to take that just to make sure that we get a solid lap in. And luckily, we do. We put ourselves into P2, and just look how close that qualifying is. Incredibly close qualifying, and this is why I love the Gran Turismo World Series in terms of the manufacturers and nations. Just look at this grid, look at the gaps between everyone. We're between P1 and P4 myself there, the gap is 0.021 of a second, and that is crazy. And just looking through the grid, we're still at only not even half, just half a tenth up to 6th from P1 to 6th, not even a tenth up to 7th. It's absolutely crazy. So the top 7 positions there, I think, separated by half a tenth. That is just pretty crazy when you think about it. How, you know, one little mistake could have cost someone, you know, one little corner being, you know, on it, gained them positions. But yeah, we'll take that. P4. Now we've got 2 Subarus in front of us. We all know how good these Subarus are on tyre wear, and this race was a tyre killer. So you had to be incredibly delicate on the tyres. The Mercedes could just about get the 9-6 split in there. If you drove it reasonably aggressive, you could just about get it in there. Now, some cars were struggling a little bit more than others. Some cars were better. The Subaru was definitely probably the strongest car for this race, the Subaru, I'd say. We saw that the fastest time, I think, was done by the Subaru. However, that was done by Killian. We all know how quick Killian is on this game. But I knew if I was going to try and get a podium in this race, we had to try and get past that Subaru early on, because I wanted to try and get into the slipstream of P2 if possible. So through here, we see an opportunity as P3 runs a little bit wide. He goes onto the gravel and he nearly loses control, but that gives me the inside line. We're going to take that position and up into a podium position straight away in this manufacturer's race. So pretty nice start to the race, up into P3. We got Jown in P1, who seemed to be flying away at the front, and I was a little bit suspicious of that pace. I was thinking, is he on the mediums? But I wasn't quite sure how good the DBR9 was at this track, so I was thinking maybe that car's just really good now on the new physics. But he was absolutely flying away. You can see the problem the Subaru's got behind us is he can't really gain in that slipstream. Now we are gaining on P2 in the Subaru, however, you can see we're just always outside that slipstream really. We need to be within 1 second really to get a reasonably strong bit of slipstream from the car in front. But at the moment we're around 1.4, 1.5 seconds back. And at this stage here, we're going to push for a few laps. I decided I'm going to go quite aggressive, well, reasonably aggressive, and try and push these tyres a little bit for a few laps to see if we can, get into that slipstream. So first lap on them now, we're just trying to build up a bit of a rhythm, see if we can get, some sort of pace out of this Mercedes. And we're managing to put a little bit of a gap to P4, which was quite nice. Getting a bit of a buffer to P4 enables us to push so that if we do make a little bit of a mistake, we're not going to be at risk of being overtaken. So again through there, a little bit of a mistake there. You saw that the car getting a little bit snappy there on the exit, and we are getting very, very close. I am getting pretty close to P2E. You can see only 1.4 seconds back from him, but again the Subaru so strong on this final corner. It was very, very difficult to get close to him. So again we come to this corner, and again I don't think I was really pushing it as much as I could have been there, but again you can see that he manages to gain a 10th on us there. And even though we gained that back on the straight, we're not going to get close enough by the time the braking to pick up a strong enough slipstream. So over the line, 1 minute 20 there. Not particularly the greatest first lap on these tyres, on the harder tyres, but we're just trying to make sure that we get that rhythm going, and now we can see if we can push. Now one thing I have noticed is sometimes the tyres seem a little bit better on the third lap on this new tyre model. I don't know if it's always the case, but it does seem that they get quite strong on the third lap. Whether it's a heat issue with the tyres, but then obviously the more aggressive you drive these tyres, the quicker they die. So you have to be a little bit cautious on this new tyre model. But one thing we will say about the new tyre model, as we watch that replay camera, how close this was, you can see quite close behind us. We're gaining on every now and then on P2, but he's pulling away in the right areas, so it's very difficult. But yeah, one thing I will say about this new tyre model is you can drive these pretty much until they're completely red. As long as you've got a bit of white showing on your tyre, you've got grip. As soon as that white goes, that's it. It's game over. Your tyres are completely gone. So you can see on this lap 3, we're actually 3/10 up on our previous lap, so we're on a much better lap. You can see we're actually getting the gap again, pretty much matching Stelios there on this lap. We're about a 10th behind him on this lap so far, and then coming out the final corner, trying to get on the power nice and early. But you can see again that Subaru just gains that vital bit of time. You can see the car behind us as well has made a mistake. I think he's picked up a penalty, so we've got a nice buffer to P4. So we go over the line 19.5, not a terrible lap with this Mercedes. It was pretty solid. We're going to skip ahead to lap 7 now, and now this was where I realised that Jown was on the medium tyre. So that was quite interesting. That was an interesting strategy, but luckily for him, there was quite a lot of field spread, and I think luckily for him, he actually came out of the pits in a nice bit of track without traffic. So that could have worked out quite bad if he'd have come out in a in a battle. Could have been quite a lot of loss of time for him, but fortunately for him, he managed to get that right and came out in perfectly clean air, I think. But you can see there, P1 starting to pull away now. That's the Subaru really with the tyres. This is the stage where you can see my right front tyre is starting to get a little bit scary. You can see I knew at this phase now, we've got a nice gap to P3. You can see we've got quite a solid gap to P3 there, 4 seconds. So I knew I can take it quite easy again and play it quite safe. A little bit like the Nations race. Just take it safe. Don't really take any risks and try and look after that tyre, which I managed to do. And you can see the right front, this is the final lap on the tyres. We had to pit this lap. We've just about managed to get this right front around. You can see final corner. I don't think this would have done pretty much any other corners. You can see through this left-hand corner, and that was the last turn we had to do with this car. And luckily that was the last corner, because I think any more and that would have been it. No more driving left. It would have just understeered off the track. So luckily got the 9 laps done. Now we're going to put the medium tyres. Now V1 Evo, who was behind us, pitted 1 lap earlier. and is going for a longer stint on the medium tyres. I didn't think that was possible with the Mercedes. The Mercedes just didn't feel like it would be able to get that sort of undercut done. So you can see he's managed to gain 2 seconds with that, but luckily we had the buffer of 4 seconds, which means he's not really going to get close enough. And you can see we're keeping it around 1.7, and we've got a lap fresher tyres now as well. So we just got to look after these tyres. I've got to keep them in reasonable condition and just make sure they don't die before the finish. That is the only aim I've got now, and see if I can take a P3 now. If we look ahead, we can see that Dylan there in P1 was on a very unusual strategy, doing 11, I think he was doing 10 or more laps on the hard tyre. Now, I was a bit confused with that strategy, purely because if your car's good enough to do that, why would you not pit earlier and use the mediums? Bit of a strange one, but he chose to do that, and I think he dropped down quite a bit there. So yeah, we're back up to P3 in that podium position. We've got a 2 second gap to P4, so as long as we keep this kind of smooth, it looks like we're going to be able to pick up some nice points from the manufacturers. And yeah, you can see the gap staying around 2 seconds. The lead, it was not really possible. You can see that Stelios was catching up to Jaun now, though. Obviously Stelios was on the softer tyre, Jaun was on the harder tyre, so he was going to pick up, he was going to lose a lot of pace there in P1. So it was going to be a battle at the front, but for me there was really no battle. You can see eventually we can skip to the final lap. We kept that gap to 2 seconds to P4. I was taking it super easy on this last lap, making sure that right front tyre could last. You can see, we've got 1 lap to do. The right front's looking quite dangerous. We're maintaining the gap around 4.6 seconds to P2, but Stelios there in that Subaru managed to get himself ahead and into the lead, and wasn't really a big surprise with that Subaru how good it was at this combination. But yeah, pretty happy with our drive here. You can see took it ultra safe on this final lap, was not pushing it, because I could see that I was literally watching that right front tyre fade away with the white, and I was just praying that that white would remain for the final corner again. These medium tyres were really getting chewed up, but it looks like we're going to make it. 1 more corner to go. All we've got to do is get it through this corner. Again, you're going to see taking no risks at all. I took it so slow. Look at, you can see with the space we left on the exit, just taking it nice and safe and bringing it over the line, and managed to get that P3 in manufacturers as well. So double podium on this weekend of racing. I'm really happy with that. Another solid drive. First slot of the day as well. Only 1 entry. Again, we didn't do too much practice for this as well with tyre maintenance. So in terms of tyre saving, we did quite a good job with that and managed to get ourselves 344 points. So solid points again in manufacturers. I'm very happy with that weekend's racing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that like button, and we'll be back with more of these catch-up videos and live streams in the future. Thanks again for watching, everyone.